Good afternoon, and a heartfelt welcome to everyone in the Greater New Orleans family for this very special version of our annual meeting. Our theme this year is Better Tomorrow. I'm Michael Hecht. I'm President and CEO of Greater New Orleans, Inc., and we are broadcasting to you today from the beautiful Loyola University Studios on St. Charles Avenue in Greater New Orleans, Louisiana. You know, it seems like a lifetime ago that we were all together for the previous GNO Inc. annual meeting. 1,300 of us cheek to jowl in the Hyatt Ballroom. The theme that year was GNOfuture, and we unveiled our aggressive and confident plan for the next decade of the region. And in fact, we were feeling so good about our prospects that we came out in sunglasses and we played Timbuk 3's song, The Future's So Bright, I Have to Wear Shades, as our theme music. Now, what did that teach us? It taught us not to tempt karma and also not to play Timbuk 3 at a corporate event, or really any event for that matter, besides an 80s throwback party. And I know who you are. But here we are today, you know, having suffered through and still truly in the midst of the most challenging year of our lifetimes. There is no one watching this video who has not been personally touched by COVID-19. And even as we see a light at the end of the tunnel, we know that the human and economic impact from this pandemic will be felt for many years. Greater New Orleans has lost over 2,500 of our family members, friends, and co-workers. It's truly difficult to comprehend. So I ask now that we all take a moment to remember those that we have lost and to pledge to create a better tomorrow in their honor. So why then did we choose the theme Better Tomorrow for this event? Well, for starters, we do know that we will be physically better soon as the vaccines are effective and the rollout is accelerating. Better Tomorrow also speaks to the opportunity and frankly the obligation to pivot out of COVID-19 in order to create a better tomorrow for our region's economy by capitalizing on all these economic trends that really have been accelerated by the pandemic. And we're going to dig into these exciting opportunities shortly. But Better Tomorrow also speaks to a discipline and a drive we must all have to keep improving no matter what the obstacles. And through this determination and resiliency, we will become better people, we will lead better organizations, and we'll become a better community. I truly believe this. The Greater New Orleans, we will be even better tomorrow. Now I want to start the event by thanking our sponsors for the 2021 annual meeting. Our title sponsor, Jones Walker, an extraordinary supporter of Greater New Orleans, Inc., the region and economic development. Our supporting sponsors, Adams and Reese, Blue Cross Blue Shield Louisiana, Boeing, Chaffin Associates, Dow, Gulf Coast Bank, LCMC Health, Loyola University, Palmisano, Postal Wait and Netterville, and Shell. I would like to also thank the 250 plus GNO Inc. member investors who make our work possible. Your continuing support is especially appreciated in this such a challenging year. I want to particularly thank our largest pinnacle investors, the AARP Foundation, Capital One, Chevron, New Orleans and the Business Alliance, the Delta Regional Authority, the Economic Development Administration, Entergy, the Goldring Family Foundation, LED, the Walton Foundation, and Outfront Media. Thank you for your extraordinary support. And I want to thank our economic development partners in the region, all 10 parishes, all of our universities, our elected officials, and of course the governor and LED. And finally, a particular debt of gratitude is due to the remarkably supportive and invested GNO Inc. board and the Next Gen Council and our other committees. Your dedication and energy as volunteer leaders, especially this year, is extraordinary. And finally, for the best Zoom, not Zoom picture, this is the GNO Inc. staff. For those of you who are watching this video now, if you could raise your glass, whether it's coffee, tea, or something more forceful, and give a toast to the GNO Inc. staff. What a talented and mission-driven team. Thank you so much. And so now, speaking of talent, and mission focus, our outgoing GNO chairman is a paragon. It's my pleasure to turn over the event to the founder and CEO of Gulf Coast Bank and Trust, the 2020 GNO chairman, my friend, Guy Williams.
Louisiana has a serious problem. Louisiana also has a great opportunity. We're shrinking, not just coastal erosion, but population. Our population peaked in 2016. Since then, it's been declining. The challenge is measured accurately by U-Haul. U-Haul does an index every year, and what they measure is U-Hauls in and out. If you're at the top of the index, like Tennessee, Texas, and Florida, that means that full U-Hauls are arriving and empty ones are leaving. If you're at the bottom of the index, like California, which is actively driving people out of business, what you have is full U-Hauls leaving your state and empty ones returning so that more people can leave. Unfortunately, in Louisiana, we're at the bottom of that index. Even our friends in Mississippi that we often like to compare ourselves to are doing better in the U-Haul index. We're not attracting and retaining the talent we need to. People are actively making a decision to leave Louisiana. We know why. One of the things that we do at GNO Inc. is measure, talk to our businesses, and when we do business development, we always ask people, if we don't win, why didn't we win? What was the dissatisfier? The number one dissatisfier is our inefficient tax system. We have one of the worst tax systems in America. It's incredibly complex. It doesn't do the job. It's economically inefficient, and what's worse, it's morally deficient. We are charging one of the highest sales taxes in the nation, so we're raising tax on the back of the poor. We're not attracting industry and economy. So when people have an option and a place to go, they're choosing places like Tennessee, Texas, and Florida with no income tax, and they're ignoring Louisiana. We know what the right thing to do is because we've asked people. We've looked at other states. The right solution in order to make our tax system economically efficient and morally efficient is to eliminate the income tax, reduce the sales tax, and increase the property tax. If we do that, we'll attract and retain people to the state of Louisiana. That's the number one negative factor. It's the number one reason that we're losing business opportunities in the state of Louisiana. Number two, we underinvest in education. We've done this for years. Huey Long used to say that he loved the state of Louisiana, loved LSU, but he never provided an adequate funding stream. So our university, our flagship university, LSU, has been chronically underfunded, but we underfund education from pre-K, from early childhood, all the way through higher ed. This has been a chronic problem, and it's resulted in a disastrous underinvestment for the state of Louisiana. If you think back, just a few decades ago, Baton Rouge and Austin were very similar cities. And if you really thought about it, you would think, okay, both university towns, both capitals, and in a lot of ways, Baton Rouge would have the edge. You'd think Baton Rouge, rather than Austin, should succeed. It's on the river, it has a chemical corridor, a lot of engineering base, has oil and gas, close to the entertainment in New Orleans. And with those advantages, you would think we should succeed here in Louisiana. Baton Rouge should outperform Austin. Now, decades later, there's no comparison. Austin is attracting Fortune 500 companies. Austin is growing. Baton Rouge, like the state of Louisiana, is shrinking. We've underinvested in education with disastrous consequences. The third dissatisfier is we deliver services badly. One of the things we discovered when we studied other states is that we actually take in per capita slightly more revenue per citizen than the state of Texas. We have enough money, we spend it badly. We know why we spend it badly. We spend it badly because for years we didn't trust our politicians. And so we have statutory dedications, we have constitutional limitations, we have very little flexibility in the budget. So our elected officials can't respond to changing circumstances. The challenge for us is We take in enough money, but because of bureaucracy, because of inefficiency, we spend it badly, and therefore we deliver municipal services badly, even though we take in more money per citizen than the state of Texas does. Our problem through the years has been that we're concerned about the wrong things. This farmer was asked, well, what do you think about the railroad? His remark was, that's a fine railroad, but I'm concerned about the mules. Well, that's been our challenge. Whenever someone suggests we can fix this, the response is, well, that would affect this special interest. For the state of Louisiana, that response has been disastrous. It's dangerous, it's inefficient, and it's resulted in us being one of the few southern states that's not growing. Now, the great thing, and certainly we're not going to leave it in that depressing place, is we have a wonderful opportunity. COVID-19 has done a lot of things, but the one thing that has done is it has shown businesses and individuals that they can work from anywhere. And people want to move. People are leaving high-tax states like California, like Illinois, like New York. They're not coming to Louisiana, but they could, because when you think about Louisiana, we have all of the things that people are looking for: the food, the festivals, the music, the art, the architecture, the brand new airport, the 5 Class 1 railroads, the river, the diverse, welcoming client people that we have in South Louisiana. So we have what people are looking for. We have the things that you can't build overnight. We just have to solve the dissatisfiers. And we know now that citizens, that companies are ready to move, they're looking to move, and we're a place that should be very attractive to them when they choose to make that move. We also know that we can do difficult things. You see in this picture, this is City Park after Hurricane Katrina. City Park before the storm was okay. It was a nice park. City Park under Bob Becker and the board is not just a nice park, it's a world-class park. They have done a phenomenal job. They have turned what was an okay park into a world-class attraction. We can do difficult things when we set our mind to it. GNO Inc. was part of a coalition that decided that the non-unanimous jury was a horrible legacy of racism and Jim Crow. It disenfranchised black jurors and resulted in people going to prison for long terms because of a non-unanimous jury. As part of that coalition that reached across civic groups, church groups, black and white, Asian, Hispanic, we were able to overturn that and get rid of that horrible legacy of racism. We can do difficult things when we set our mind to it. We started to deal with the challenging issue of tort reform. This is something that's plagued Louisiana for years. You can have the same car, move it to Dallas, and your insurance rate goes down even if you're at State Farm in both states. We've begun to make changes in tort reform, and insurance rates are beginning to go down. We can do difficult things when we set our mind to it. We know the things that are not attractive, we know how to fix them, and we know that in this state, when we set our mind to it, we can make things work. So we at GNO Inc. are focused on fixing the problems, seizing the opportunity. And we challenge you, we implore you, we beg you, join us. We can't do it alone. We can do difficult things.
It is now my honor and pleasure to present the outgoing chair gift to Guy Williams. Now, Guy Williams is the James Bond of community banking. You might know him as the buttoned-up founder and CEO of Gulf Coast Bank, which has grown into one of the most nimble and effective companies in the Gulf South, as we've witnessed and frankly benefit from during the PPP program. In fact, Gulf Coast was the largest community bank PPP lender in the southeast of the United States. But what you might not know about Guy is that he also rides motorcycles and is a competitive ocean sailor. He is truly the Gulf Coast banker of mystery. But really, the Guy Williams that I've come to know and deeply appreciate is a man with sharp intelligence, a strong moral compass, and a deep commitment to the community. Guy is principled, passionate, and persistent. just the leader GNO Inc. needed over the past year, and really the archetype of the leader that our region and state will need more of in the years to come. Please join me in thanking Guy Williams for his service as chairman to GNO Inc. and the New Orleans region. Thank you, Guy.
Oh, Michael, thank you very much. It's been a great honor. You know, it's interesting. I was talking to Michael one time about the challenge this year, because normally you get together, you have lots of meals, lots of opportunities to socialize. And Michael, being the generous person that he was, gave me a mint. And my mom has always said, when you're offered a mint, you should take it.
Did I do
Michael,
that?
thank you.
I would now like to present the outgoing Next Gen Council Chair gift to Brian Hodnett. Our Next Gen Council is our diverse board of rising regional leaders, and Brian definitely fits this definition. Brian is Vice President for Business Development for Donahue Favret Contractors, who are based in Mandeville but do work all over the region and the Gulf South. Brian combines salesmanship with savvy and really has as much interest in policy development as in business development. And this makes Brian a great fit for GNO Inc.'s dual approach to economic development and, frankly, a great civic leader with a great future. Under Brian's leadership, the Next Gen Council hosted the first ever virtual policy day at the Capitol, relaunched the Parish Familiarization Tour program, and spearheaded an effort to increase broadband access throughout the region. And Brian did it all with a smile and good humor despite the pandemic and while getting married. So keep on the lookout for Brian Hodnett. This is not the last that you'll see of him. And please join me in thanking Brian for his service as Next Gen Council Chairman. Brian, thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Rachel, and thank you, everybody, to GNO Inc. It's been a very challenging year, but it was such an honor to hold this position, and I'm really excited to pass the torch on to Paul Matthews. So, thank you.
Thank you. Fist bump, as we do. Whoop. Great. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Of course, 2020 was dominated by COVID and its impact on lives and livelihoods. Here at GNO Inc., we drew on our experience going back to Katrina, Macondo, and even 9/11 to help our business community mitigate the worst impacts of the crisis and actually find some silver linings. And we know from these experiences that you can honor those who have lost really best by rebuilding lives and livelihoods in a way that's better than before. So first, talking about our activity during COVID, to begin with, Governor John Bel Edwards made GNO Inc. the co-chair of the Resilient Louisiana Commission Economic Development Task Force, and in this role we began to address the profound challenges that were hurting our businesses by developing concepts like cash flow relief. And moreover, we began to explore the opportunities for greater New Orleans and Louisiana that could exist, in fact, because of COVID, like the rising dominance of logistics. And we'll talk more about these opportunities later. But we also recognize that going back to Andrew Higgins and Higgins Industry, that our businesses have a long history of pivoting to meet the challenge of the day. And in the case of Higgins Industries, he took one of his swamp boats, converted it into a landing craft that went on to, in the words of General Eisenhower, save the free world. And in the process, interestingly, Higgins Industry grew from 70 people to over 20,000 and became the first fully integrated shop floor in New Orleans. So, drawing on this legacy, GNO Inc. set up GNO Pivot. And the idea is that this is a place where companies who are changing their business model to both serve the urgent need and create a new revenue source could find customers. And over 75 businesses are using GNO Pivot, including clothing makers who are now making masks, distillers who are now making sanitizers, and even maker spaces that have pivoted to making 3D shields. We also realized that there was a similar opportunity to pivot on the workforce side, and so we set up GNO Match on WorkNOLA, which is kind of the monster.com for the region. On GNO Match, employees who had been laid off due to COVID could find work in sectors that were surging, like delivery, and at the same time, companies who are struggling to keep up with demand could find needed staff. Of course, we also advocated very forcefully for liquidity assistance for businesses that have been shut down through no fault of their own. Based on our past experience, we wrote an early concept for what eventually became the Paycheck Protection Program. The PPP has gone on to become the largest, fastest, and most impactful small business assistance program in American history. And as you can see here, down here is the assistance that was delivered for Hurricane Katrina and Rita. About $10 billion in total loan value. Up here is the PPP as of last week, $560 billion in loan value. An increase is over 5,000%. And we're proud to have played a role in getting that program going. And finally, of course, we understood that the most basic need of business and frankly citizens is timely, clear, and actionable information. And that's why we developed our evening coronavirus updates received by thousands, and why we're now producing a vaccine dashboard, which is going to show our progress as a state towards herd immunity. And you can find more about the dashboard and other resources at GNOinc.org. But 2020 was not just about fighting COVID. Some business sectors, in fact, remained hot. You saw what I did there? Now, one of those was food manufacturing, and we were thrilled when the Louisiana Pepper Exchange announced that it would invest $2 million and create 50 jobs in a newly renovated facility in the Lower Garden District in Orleans Parish. And foreshadowing the post-COVID opportunity in logistics, Medline, the nation's leading medical supplier, announced a $25 million, 400-job, million-square-foot advanced distribution facility on the North Shore. It's now going to be located in Hammond. And as we say with GNO Inc., Medline is definitely down with PPE. Okay, moving on. In another indication of good things to come, Service Corporation International in Jefferson decided to bring 115 back-office positions back to the U.S. from India and Mexico. And then we beat out locations around the country to get those jobs placed right here in GNO. Now, SCI shares their building with Sleep Number, who also expanded to Greater New Orleans from Minneapolis a few years ago. We also saw continued growth in the digital media sector. Multinationals like Keywords and Shutterstock invested in Greater New Orleans, and new companies opened here. Gramercy Labs, which is run by a Jesuit and UNO grad, expanded from New York, London, and Dublin to have a New Orleans office. Raystone opened, and they're a fintech company with a mission to democratize working capital. And Benzayit, a data analytics company, announced plans to open here as well. Continuing our push on video game development, we partnered with Microsoft and launched the Microsoft Game Camp, also working with Unity, Xbox, and Adobe. Over 400 Louisianians applied to take part in Game Camp, where they were able to build their own video game while being mentored by industry experts. And Microsoft, by the way, which owns Xbox, also owns In Exile in New Orleans, and High Voltage Software in New Orleans actually does the coding for Fortnite, the most played video game in the world, pretty much by your kids. But also back on the industrial side, also had some really nice successes. In St. Charles Parish, ARC, a clean energy company, invested $40 million at the IMTT site in St. Rose. They're going to create over 40 direct and indirect jobs with a process that actually converts coal waste into clean energy. And in New Orleans East, Italian company Ireapac is opening a facility that makes plastic packaging, adding value to the feedstock that's made in the river region. But of course, as you know, business development is just one side of GNO Inc. The other side is product development, creating a better business environment. And on the policy side, challenges notwithstanding, we were able to bring home some important wins for Greater New Orleans. We spoke at the White House about the importance of opportunity zones and expanding them into communities of need. And then working with our congressional delegation, we were able to pass important legislation like the Water Resources Development Act, which will eliminate over $600 million in accrued interest for Louisiana and our post-Hurricane Katrina protection system. We've also turned our attention to promoting a consolidated regional agenda for infrastructure priorities so we can maximize the benefit to Louisiana and Greater New Orleans when the expected federal infrastructure package rolls out. Here at the state level, we also helped pass some key legislation. This includes providing liability protection for businesses from frivolous COVID claims, protecting funding for early childhood education, enhancing the angel investor tax credit so now you get a bonus for investing in opportunity zones, extending the historic preservation tax credit that's been so important to us for 15 years, and reducing the jury trial threshold from $50,000 down to $10,000, which will help bring down auto insurance, important to both businesses and also our working families. GNOU, our demand-driven workforce program, continued to expand, working with all of the universities, the 13, in our region. We had programs that we rolled out like urban construction management at UNO, a maritime service technician program at Delgado, NTCC, and Nunez, a master's in data and customer service here at Tulane. And then this is our mechatronics mobile lab, which goes around the region teaching students from Greater New Orleans and Louisiana through a German-style apprenticeship program about how they can learn about the confluence of manufacturing and robotics. It probably also has some decent tailgating potential as well, but we haven't explored that yet. We're proud to have launched Study NOLA. This is a new website. You can go to it at studynola.com. The issue is that we are an education destination. Here in Greater New Orleans, we have 13 higher education institutions, including Loyola, where we are today, of outstanding quality and diversity, including the only public-private HBCU cluster in America. And it's about time that we started using our schools as a competitive advantage. Please go check it out at studynola.com. And not all of our education was at the college level. In partnership with the Joe W. and Dorothy Dorset Brown Foundation and the Louisiana Children's Museum, we also produced a series of videos drawn by children to help educate our kids on the importance of coastal restoration. And Pelly the Pelican, her real name, tells the story of coastal preservation in kind of a schoolhouse rock kind of fashion, only that's a different kind of bill. And NOM, our New Orleans music economy effort, continued with a new website, a newsletter, and a just-launched database of all of our musical assets like recording studios in the region. I'd also encourage you to check that out at nolamusic.biz. The slogan is "Making Music Make Money," and what we intend to do is to build a full industry of music here to keep our musical wealth at home and reinvest it in our culture. Our effort on economic mobility and black wealth creation really gained momentum in 2020. We now have work streams focused on entrepreneurship, career advancement, youth development, public policy, and the digital divide. In entrepreneurship, we held a panel in partnership with the White House that included Xavier, Dillard, SUNO, the Urban League, and the Regional Black Chamber. As a result of that event, we now have a paid internship apprenticeship program which supports local HBCU students interning at startups. We're also partnering directly with Black Tech NOLA, which aims to become the go-to national event for black entrepreneurship and tech talent, and with the Urban League on a number of initiatives, including a capital growth series, and also on building a corporate framework for racial equity. Here at GNO Inc., it's our goal to have an economy where all citizens participate to their fullest potential. And finally, just like you can't cancel Mardi Gras, you can't cancel great rankings. And so here are a few that came in for 2020. New Orleans was ranked as the #1 metro logistics leader in all of America. Amazon ranked us #5 for the growth of digital entrepreneurs. New Orleans Airport surged into the top 10% for customer satisfaction. And Common, a real estate website, named New Orleans as one of 5 types of cities that will win in the recovery, and more on that later on. So now let's look to tomorrow. Let's look to a better tomorrow. And again, what do we mean by this? We mean physically better, but we don't just mean physically better with full vaccine rollout and herd immunity, although that is first and that's critical. We don't just mean economically better in the sense of shops and offices being open again and back to business as usual. What we mean is that the economic trends created and oftentimes just accelerated by COVID actually play to the natural strengths of Greater New Orleans. And so if we're smart and we make the right decisions today, then we can exit from this crisis with an economy with even more potential for prosperity than we had pre-COVID. We can have an economy and a quality of life that is truly better tomorrow for everyone. But first, a little history. If you look at this chart, what you see is that going back to 1980, after the oil bust, we went into a period of slow stagnation and decline. We were losing people, we were losing companies, we were losing GDP. And so then when Katrina hit, many people thought that it was the tragic, very sad, but somewhat inevitable end of a once great city and region. We then experienced something that we call radical resilience, where we didn't just come back, but we came back in many ways better than before. We were doing things post-Katrina that wouldn't have been thought possible in terms of the economy, in terms of good government, before the event, let alone after the greatest engineering failure in American history. And so then we moved into this period of trying to get into critical mass, which was about getting enough companies, enough population, enough capital to get into a virtual cycle that was self-perpetuating for growth. When COVID hit, obviously the entire world was affected. And now here's where we are today. And so the question is, which way are we going to go? Are we going to take advantage of these opportunities that are in front of us to continue our trajectory of growth towards critical mass and being self-sustaining? Or are we going to let them slip by? And are we going to fall back to this low trajectory of stagnation? Obviously, there's only one acceptable answer. So let's talk about that and about making a better tomorrow. The first opportunity is absolutely in trade and logistics. And some people now say that logistics is the new retail. What they mean by that is that if you are able to deliver your product fastest and at the lowest cost, you're going to win. And Southeast Louisiana was born to win this contest. In fact, in 1682, Robert La Salle wrote to King Louis XIV, the Sun King, and said, "A port or two here would make us masters of the whole of this continent." And he was right. So now is the time to go back to the future with trade. We have the Mississippi connecting us to 32 states and 2 provinces, currently being deepened to 50 feet. We have 6 Class 1 railroads. We have great highway connectivity. And we have a brand new airport that's one of the fastest growing in the country. But what are we fighting for? And this is the key thing. We're fighting for this, America's trade battleground, the middle 1/3 of the country. Houston, it's congested. Long Beach has famous problems, infamous problems. If we make the right investments, for example, in a container facility that can take the new post-Panamax vessels, and we develop a consolidated single strategy, we can win. But that's the key. For too long, our trade stakeholders have acted in isolation, sometimes in competition, and this has only confused our message and diluted our impact. If we act together from Baton Rouge to the Port of South Louisiana to New Orleans, St. Bernard, and Plaquemines, we can dominate the middle of America, from Dallas to Chicago over to Atlanta. With digital media and technology, the United States, and especially Greater New Orleans, has a huge opportunity. For years, technology companies have been offshoring to seemingly less expensive overseas markets. But what COVID showed them is that this can in fact be an expensive strategy. You can work from home in St. Bernard, but you can't really do it in Bangalore. The infrastructure, it's not there. So companies are now looking to grow in the United States. They're reshoring. And here in the US, there are a few places that can compete with our low-cost, high-culture value proposition. And that's why you see companies like SCI moving jobs back to Jefferson from Mexico and India. And that's why you also see DXC choosing Greater New Orleans instead of overseas for their 2,000 job service center. It's why you see Shutterstock coming down from New York City to invest in New Orleans, and TurboSquid, and Microsoft linking up from Seattle and coming down here for In Exile. It's why you see Gramercy Labs, a technology incubator located in New York, London, and Dublin, opening in New Orleans. We have a fantastic opportunity for diverse jobs in digital media. Now, manufacturing, interestingly, has a similar situation. Just like with technology, COVID has accelerated the trend for manufacturing to be brought home to America. And this is about more than just patriotism or Buy American. As Business Facility Magazine says, the previous focus on the lowest cost scenario, which led to growth in China and Southeast Asia, will now become more balanced as companies look to reduce risk. And when companies look to where they want to rebalance in the US, they'll consider Southeast Louisiana. We have some of the best industrial infrastructure, the most productive workforce, and the lowest utility costs in the United States. And one area that we're particularly interested in is pharmaceuticals, because currently up to 80% of our drugs are made in India and China. And for both economic and geopolitical reasons, they should be made right here in Louisiana. Now, unsurprisingly, COVID has also accelerated trends in healthcare, and GNO is on the cutting edge. With in-person visits a challenge, telemedicine is on the rise, and our local institutions, like Ochsner, are leading that trend. In fact, Ochsner Telehealth received a higher customer satisfaction ranking online than Amazon or Netflix. GNO is also leading in infectious disease research. For example, Tulane Medical School, which was founded to combat yellow fever and has helped cure Ebola and is now leading the fight against COVID. But beyond COVID, GNO has an opportunity to become the MD Anderson of neurodegenerative diseases. And why is this important? Because with the population over 65 set to double by 2050, pathologies like Alzheimer's disease unfortunately will continue to grow. But also interestingly, because 25% of all the hotel stays in Houston are people getting medical care at the Texas Medical Center, destination healthcare is an extraordinary economic opportunity. So here in New Orleans, we have multiple organizations doing great research and clinical neurological work, such as Tulane, LSU, LCMC Health, the Saints, the Gleason Foundation, Xavier, and many others. And if we establish GNO as the hub for neurological research and care, we can improve lives, thousands of lives, but we can also create significant jobs and wealth. Also continuing, despite COVID, is aerospace manufacturing in New Orleans East. The Artemis program, a partnership between NASA, Boeing, Lockheed Martin, and many others, will continue to employ hundreds as we build the vessel and the rocket that will put the first woman on the moon in 2024 and deliver humankind to Mars after that. And another opportunity for us, which is related to Michoud, is wind. In fact, wind is a potential triple win for us. First, we have the manufacturing and trade capabilities to design, build, and ship windmill components around the world. And this is already happening at Michoud, where the longest blades in the world are being designed by LM Wind Power. And here, in fact, is a ship on the Mississippi being loaded up with windmill blades. Second, we have a 70-year legacy of offshore marine service. Our companies like Edison Schwest, Ares Marine, and Mino Marine are already building wind service vessels and providing support. And here's a picture of an offshore wind superfeeder vessel made by Second Wind Marine that's going to be part of that fleet that's servicing wind structures around the country and around the world. And finally, we have a longer-term opportunity to actually place offshore wind in the Gulf to be part of a renewable energy portfolio. Governor Edwards made a first important step in this direction when he made a request to the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management in D.C. to move towards wind leases in the Gulf. And to support this effort, GNO Inc. has created the GNO Wind Alliance with members from energy, offshore services, universities, and beyond. And as you can see, the slogan is Laissez le bon vent souffler. Let the good wind blow. And finally, we have a general lifestyle opportunity. COVID has robbed big cities of the benefits of density. As a result, per the Wall Street Journal, workers are now fleeing big cities for smaller ones and taking their jobs with them. And Greater New Orleans has been ranked as a top 5, for where these urban refugees should resettle. It's a generational opportunity for GNO to not only bring home Louisiana expats, but also to bring in remote workers and their jobs, tax base, and eventually companies. And to this end, GNO Inc. has revamped our destination GNO relocation website and hired a full-time social media manager to target these future Greater New Orleanians. And you can check this out at destinationgno.com. And thank you to Chevron for your sponsorship of Destination GNO. So how do we get to a better tomorrow? These ideas are exciting, but how do we actually make it happen? Well, first, we have to take care of basics. At the end of the day, economic development is about creating the conditions where people feel comfortable investing their capital and raising their family. So this is about safety in schools, infrastructure and amenities, and also about tax structure, as Guy talked about. If we get these right, success will follow naturally. Second, it's about investment in education and training. Starting with early childhood, we have to ensure that all of our citizens have the skills to be able to access these jobs. If we harness the human potential, our residents will be able to generate wealth and our companies will be able to grow. This is how we achieve prosperity and equity. Finally, we have to tell the world our story. Everyone loves New Orleans around the world, but for our music and our food and our culture, we We have to tell them that that is certainly true and you can never cancel the Mardi Gras spirit. But all that opportunity that we just reviewed also makes New Orleans an outstanding place to build your company and to raise your family. That's what we have to do if we want to get to a better tomorrow. It is now my pleasure to introduce Gay Lebreton, incoming board chair for GNO Inc. Gay is managing director and leader of the merger and acquisition practice at Chaffin Associates. She's received many accolades in her long career as a leader in financing, including being named a Woman of the Year by City Business. But what really distinguishes Gay is her energy and inquisitiveness. Particularly, Gay has a passion for entrepreneurship and privately held firm growth and wealth creation. And in this vein, I know that over the next year, GNO Inc. is going to double down on supporting the entrepreneurial ecosystem in Greater New Orleans. Gay has also been a leader on our coastal restoration efforts, and I know we're going to focus going forward on how to pay for and measure the future of our coastal restoration efforts. But most of all, Gay loves Greater New Orleans. And every hard question that she asks, and there are many, comes from a place of love and a deep desire to see Greater New Orleans achieve its full potential. I'm very excited to work with Gay Lebreton as chairwoman of GNO Inc.
Thank you, Michael, for those kind words. When everything is uncertain, everything that is important becomes clear. That quote by Dr. Carolyn Leaf made the rounds during 2020's initial lockdown, and it turns out to be so true. This extraordinary last year brought into focus what matters most: family, health, teachers, neighbors, teammates, and for GNO Inc., our investor members and community, our remarkable staff and board and next-gen council members, our elected officials, and our friends who work with us on so many GNO initiatives. The pandemic underscored the value of our people and our partnerships, and we are grateful for all the support. We enter 2021 with purpose and hope based on real opportunity for the Greater New Orleans region as captured in GNOfuture. I look forward to working with all of you to execute on this plan, and I'm honored to be GNO Inc.'s chairperson for 2021. A heartfelt thank you to Guy Williams for his strength and leadership through a tumultuous 2020. Becoming chairman of GNO Inc. as COVID-19 hit was, I am sure, not what he had envisioned when he agreed to take the job. But with grace and the forthrightness I consider his trademark, Guy has provided vision and perspective to face difficult times, all the while fostering a sense of community and progress despite it all. I would also like to add my thanks to the staff of GNO Inc., who showed resilience and creativity in a challenging year in more forms than I have time to name. I do appreciate the internal financial discipline in 2020 that leaves us a strong organization with which to tackle the opportunities of 2021. Thank you, Jeff Teague, and our Senior Vice President of Finance, and Sarah Bradford, our Director of Advancement. None of this would be possible without our leader, Michael Hecht. Watching him up close these last 3 years, all I can say is that I wish I could clone him and his passion for creating opportunity for everyone. I'd like to underscore Michael's great work in developing GNOfuture, the inclusive way he went about creating this 10-year job growth strategy, and his willingness to look at both local expertise and global best practices as we assess the challenges and opportunities for our region's economic development in a post-COVID-19 world. Now we shift to implementation of our strategy and strategic initiatives connected to this, to continued partnership and perseverance. In GNOfuture, we have a tangible roadmap and concrete goals. Some are more tactical, while others point to fundamental change. Michael says that COVID-19 did not change the economy as much as accelerate existing trends. I might add, it showed us our strengths and our weaknesses more pointedly. We can build on trade and logistics, advanced manufacturing and aerospace, wind energy and food, on digital media and technology, energy and petrochemicals, our health sciences and environmental management to produce good quality jobs in our region. We have natural strengths and skills in each of these areas, and we have a culture and lifestyle that is uniquely attractive. But here is the reality we must confront. People will go where economic activity exists, which says to me that Louisiana and each one of us must steadily address those policies that make our state and our region less competitive. First and foremost is Louisiana's tax structure. We need to simplify our state's tax structure and make it more attractive. That starts with eliminating federal deductibility and lowering personal income taxes in a tax-neutral manner. And we need to take maximum advantage of the infrastructure bill that President Biden and Congress are expected to pass, including having available state matching funds that may be necessary. And that brings up again a transportation tax. Some of our leaders think that changing Louisiana's tax structure and increasing a gasoline or transportation tax could not get the necessary 2/3 vote from our lawmakers in each chamber, citing the current state of the economy. Like Guy, I say that over the last 16 years, we have proven that we can do hard things in Louisiana. We must summon the political will to deal with serious structural flaws in how Louisiana operates and seize the opportunity to drive system change that will have a ripple effect in our state's well-being. We can do this. No time is better to push fundamental change forward than the time we are living through now, when people can see what is most important to them and what they must do to achieve it. So I ask that we be willing to question ourselves and our leaders to think in a different way that lets us attract jobs, retain our people, and achieve a critical mass for sustained growth. Michael knows my passions. Over the next year, I'll be working with our great staff and board to execute on GNOfuture, including supporting change in Louisiana's tax structure. And I'll be pursuing two of my longtime interests, GNO's efforts in flood and coastal resilience. Both represent existential threats to our region. We have work to do in 2021 and beyond to ensure good policy and continued funding for these issues. Also, I'll be working with GNO Inc.'s Economic Mobility Initiative, intended to help all in our region, but with a focus on Black wealth creation. This matrix of actions collectively will remove barriers to success and increase opportunity and wealth creation. And I'll be examining how GNO Inc. can support entrepreneurship throughout our region to help our young businesses grow and expand access to capital. GNOfuture is nothing if not ambitious. We can achieve this plan following the example of the extraordinary Drew Brees with unwavering commitment, fierce determination, and phenomenal work ethic. Economic development takes perseverance, and I ask you to join us in that effort. While I have the floor, I'd like to make a promise to Guy Williams. We will have a board meeting in St. Bernard Parish sometime in 2021 at the earliest opportunity. And I hope one of our other parishes will host us for another board meeting before the end of the year. Our 10-parish region is one of our organization's great strengths. I'd like to end on this note. Abraham Lincoln said, "The best way to predict the future is to create it." This is our opportunity to catalyze positive change and to shape the future so that we can create a region with a thriving economy and an excellent quality of life for everyone. Earlier today, the membership approved the 2021 Board of Directors and Next Gen Council. I look forward to working with all of you over the next year.
Gay, thank you so much for those remarks, and I really look forward to working with you. You know, in conclusion, people sometimes say to me, Michael, I hear what you're saying, but don't you think you're just being a bit too optimistic? And, you know, my polite but resolute answer is no. First of all, the type of optimism that we practice at GNO Inc. is what I call honest optimism. Every opportunity that we tout is grounded in objective analysis and facts. Second, we really have to paint a picture of the future in order to recruit people onto the team. And finally, optimism is simply a more productive mode than despair. Here in Greater New Orleans, we lean in. As we have seen this year, life can be challenging and unpredictable and sometimes very hard. But if we stick together, are unified in our vision, and hold ourselves to the highest standards for all of our citizens, we can create a better tomorrow. We have done it before, and we will do it again. So that brings us to the conclusion of our event. Thank you, everybody, for joining us, and thank you again to Guy for a wonderful year as chairman, and Gay, we're looking to the future. Brian, thank you for the Next Gen Council, and thank you to all of our partners and sponsors. If you want to learn more about GNOfuture, our plan for the next decade, including the specific post-COVID opportunities that we talked about today, please go to the totally revamped GNO Inc. website at gnoinc.org and click on initiatives. We look forward to working with all of you for a better tomorrow. Thank you.